All right, we are live.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to episode 5 of the Inner Child Outer Adult podcast. We're going to be really diving into a topic that both Megan and I have been on many different ends of it, experience wise. And we both have a lot of stories to share with you during this experience and just kind of bring some openness and some awareness to what is really going on in this day and age in this world of our children, how they're kind of navigating this world, and not even only our children but the younger adults and really every age. We're going to be jumping into bullying and suicide, and it's something that does not discriminate against gender, age, ethnicity. It's there. It's something that a lot of people experience in one form
Yeah.
or another. And it's just something that is really impactful in this world today. And we've already seen it from the first day of school this year where you had the shooting in Georgia.
And
So
so many stories on the internet of youth committing suicide and having bullying problems at school, and it being Suicide Awareness Month and a topic that is near and dear to both our hearts. We thought it was really, really important to address because our kids are really struggling. It's a scary world out there right now.
yeah, and it's how do you prepare them for something like this, right?
Mhm.
Because it's not something that they are going to necessarily avoid their whole life. These are things that they might have a friend that goes through something, whether it's
Yeah.
PTSD, maybe they had a bad, a hard upbringing, or they were in a violent relationship, and so they
Hmm.
have these things that maybe it might not be them that physically goes through it, but they could have a friend, a spouse, a child themselves that experiences this, and to have the
Yeah.
awareness of it is so impactful to be able to see possibly the signs, the symptoms, just those things in life that can bring the awareness that they might be going through a lot of struggles. Because from my own personal experience is those that are truly uh serious about suicide, they are quiet. They
Yeah.
don't bring it up, they don't
Mm-mm.
mention it, they don't scream for the attention by using it as a threat, but they
No.
really hold it inside, and that's why when it does happen, it's such a big surprise and impact on the family, whether it was a successful attempt or not. It's very impactful because a lot of times they don't see it coming, but then they
No.
beat themselves up because the signs were always there. They're just not blatantly in your face all the time.
No, you really have to know, what to look for, and it's one of those, taboo topics that's really uncomfortable to talk about because nobody wants to think about someone doing that. But there's also a lot of stigma on, "Oh, it's selfish, it's drama," and it's really not from my experience, personally, and working with other with children at risk. It's not something they're doing to be selfish. It's a last extreme to escape pain that they don't know how to deal with and they don't feel like they're getting help from.
Absolutely. And it really is. It's that last resort is really what it comes down to. And it's not like a spontaneous thing. Like this is something that builds up and builds up,
Yeah,
you know.
it's a slow burn. Yeah.
Absolutely, and having confidence in yourself, and, like, our kids having confidence in their self and feeling comfortable with themselves is one of the biggest ways for them to navigate this world without the bullying having a major impact on them.
Yeah.
And when I was reflecting on this topic itself, it I had a story come up, and, like, it was a memory of an experience I went through, when I
Mm,
was a police officer, and it
yeah.
was a
I
moment
bet you
where
saw a lot.
Absolutely, and
Yeah.
there's one that really stuck out in my mind, and she was actually a young adult, and she
Mhm.
was in her early 20s. And one day I was on patrol, and I got dispatched to a local hotel for somebody who was overdosing. And when I got to the room was locked. I had to get them to let me in, but when I
Yeah.
made entry, there was a young female laying on a bed, and she was kind of in and out of being coherent. so it hadn't really kicked in yet.
Yeah.
And I was talking to her, and she told me that she took a bunch of pills, but once she realized what she had done, she had regretted it.
Yeah.
And so I had medics on the way, and I was taking care of what I needed to. But during those moments, like, your best option is to keep them with you and keep them coherent, right? Like,
Oh,
I
yeah,
need to stay with you.
don't leave them alone, give
You
them assistance, give them support,
talk to
call
them, like, keep their
immediately,
attention,
like
right?
yeah.
And so, I'm talking to her, and I'm asking her, it's like trying to find out why she did what she did without
Mhm.
setting her off. Well, in the midst of the conversation, I had come to find out that her husband, her new husband, was in law enforcement as well, but he was in a whole nother town.
Oh.
And she was kind of running away from everything. Well, she was white and he was African American, and
Mhm.
her family did not approve of it. And so they had bullied her so much that she was so torn in her own self of whether to be committed to her husband or committed to her family. So she ran away. And
That's so
that
wrong.
was
Why does it matter? It doesn't
yeah.
matter, people.
It really doesn't, and so it's like it had such an impact on her, though. She was just like, I'm gonna be done with all of this," but then she had that change of heart, which thankfully, I was actually, like, 2 minutes away from that hotel when I got that call, so
Ooh,
I was,
small
like, right
miracles.
there. Yeah, exactly, so somebody was looking out for her. It wasn't her
Yeah.
time, and what she took wasn't so detrimental that it was, like, an end all be all thing anyway, so many different things looking out for her in that moment. But there obviously, just knowing that and knowing how her parents handled her choice of who she wanted to love, I imagine her upbringing probably wasn't the easiest either,
Probably
so,
not.
she, I'm sure, experienced that, and, a big
Yeah.
part is when we don't help our kids understand, what, bullying is there. No matter
Mhm.
what you do, where you go, how old you are, it's in the workforce, it's in
Everywhere.
society itself, it's
Yeah,
everywhere.
everywhere.
And so the one thing that I have learned is if you can teach your children to be confident in who they are, but
Yeah.
comfortable in their exterior, but confident in their interior, then they themselves are not gonna be affected, or very well influenced by others who are trying to judge them, tear them down.
Yeah.
Let your children know, like, that's a reflection of them, not a reflection of you.
Yeah.
If you can sit there and reflect on it and say, "Am I really that way?" And you can honestly answer yourself and say, "No," then there's nothing that you did wrong. There's nothing that you need to worry about. It's fine. You can keep moving forward
Yeah.
with what you have going. It's that confidence that they need that I think a lot of us didn't have when we were younger.
Yeah, and since this is, like, such an important topic, like, we did do a lot of extra research on this one because I mean, there's information that a lot of people don't have or know to look for or, the connections that make it so vital to know about, so we've got, a slide presentation and then several links down in the description where you can do some research and learn more so that you're aware and prepared.
Absolutely. And while you're bringing those slides up, yeah, I actually was doing a lot of research too, of, like, kind of curious about, like, the 1980s, the 90s, the 2000s,
Yeah,
the 2010s, the 2020s. Just, like, looking at a comparable difference of all of those compared to, like,
I
now.
do know that in like the last, I would say 10, 15, 20 years, the numbers have skyrocketed.
Oh, absolutely.
Skyrocketed.
And they've done nothing but gone up, you
Mhm.
know? But what's crazy is back in the '80s, things were different. Like, kids weren't, coddled as much as they are today. Back in the '80s, like, you really just had to suck it up. Teachers really weren't standing up for other kids in those moments. You're just everybody was very blunt and very harsh back then, and you really couldn't show the expression of emotions. And if somebody picked on you, like, you got in a fight. Like, you literally just got in a fight to settle it. And so those, the
That can
'80s, the
it's
'90s.
interesting it's interesting that the numbers wouldn't have been in hot as high, during that time period, because like that inability to talk about it and work through the emotions and express in a safe place with a safe person is actually so integral to
Yeah.
catching someone before they make that ultimate choice.
Absolutely. But they settled it with fighting back then. And I remember even in school for me, even in the 90s, like 'cause I went to high school through the pretty much through the 90s, and even then, like you settled things in fights, whether it was in school, after school, at the bus stop. Like it just a lot of times you got in a fight and then you made friends. You ended up either friends afterwards or you were enemies afterwards. And that's
I
I,
didn't. It took me a long time to get the guts up to stand up for myself. I was in I was like a sophomore, junior in high school before I'd finally had enough of it. And was like, okay, I'm done. Like,
Yeah, I mean, eventually you get tired of it, right? You're just
yeah,
like, "I'm over this," and then the minute you stand up for yourself is usually the minute when it ends, and you get to that point where you're like, I'm willing to take a beating if it means me standing up for myself and it means I have to take a beating for that, like,
yeah,
I'm willing to put up with that. I'm willing to go into this and throw fists if I have to because I'm just done with this.
yeah,
But you unfortunately, like, you can't do that these days either because then all of a sudden law enforcement gets brought in, you have charges put on you, everybody wants to sue everybody, so you can't settle things how they were, but it's also about being able to show our kids like, okay, well, how do you deal with it?
yeah,
And a lot of times these days, our kids will report this happening and nothing gets done about it and nobody
yeah.
stands up
That's
for
that's
them.
the big problem. Yeah.
It's huge. So,
All right. So first piece of information we've got for you guys is the impact of bullying. So, research shows that 20 to 56% of young people will experience bullying each school year. And in a classroom of 30 kids, on average 30 kids, that means that 6 to 17 students per classroom have been bullied or are bullying. And
that's huge.
what it also shows is that long-term bullying will result in poor mental and physical health, depression and anxiety. Their academic success will drop. They'll have a hard time feeling like they belong and interacting with their peers. And there's also a highly increased rate of substance abuse and risky, dangerous behaviors. And then in that um, population, uh, as it goes on over time, suicidal ideation and suicidal attempts are 3 times more likely in the groups of children affected by it than those who don't have any effect or any experience. And the numbers here for me were rather startling. So in 6th, ninth, and 12th grade youths, 5% of perpetrators, like the bullies, were likely to make a serious suicide attempt. In victims, it's 6.5%. And then there's a special category where they are victims themselves, but then they turn around and bully others. And so the CDC calls that bully victims, and they actually have the highest rate of risk at 11.1%. And if you think about like that 6 to 17 number in the classroom, that's high. That's a lot of kids.
That is a very big number, and I find that really interesting that even the bullies themselves have a 5% suicidal rate. Because I
Well,
mean,
right, because
obviously, most
they're
bullies, that comes from a reason, right? Like, they're usually getting picked on, whether it's at home or somewhere else themselves as
yeah, like,
well.
if a kid is perpetrating bullying behavior on others, there's something going on there too. Kids don't just bully because they're bad kids. They bully because they've got something
Yeah,
going on in their lives that is causing them to act out in that way.
which a lot of times is that insecurity, and it's where's it coming from? Like, either your parents tearing you down, telling you you're not good enough, you won't amount to anything,
Yeah,
creating that depression, anxiety within, or it could be their siblings doing it. There's
yeah,
a lot of those factors that come into play with it.
right, and that's oops, that got messed up. Oh, well. That's That's the next slide is like it's not just bullying behavior or getting bullied that leads to suicide. There's other things involved as well. There's if they've made previous suicide attempts or if they have friends or family that they've lost to suicide, the risk goes up. Mental illness or mental health problems and pushback because of societal stigmas about mental illness and mental health problems raise it. There's also discrimination, racism, rejection, or hostility towards certain gender and sexual orientations. If there's a history of sexual abuse, oh yeah. If they've witnessed domestic violence at home, if they have a parent with depression or substance abuse problems, stressful life experience such as a divorce in the family or a loss of a family member, if they're from a low income family and financial security is a big stressor, even changes in like puberty or experience of chronic illness and a loss of a relationship, like if they have a boyfriend or girlfriend that breaks up with them or they
Yeah.
lose social connections and are having a hard time fitting in, like it makes the risk that much higher.
Right. When I was in the police academy, I we were going through it, and they were talking about retirement because it was a 20-year retirement, right?
Hmm.
And they were telling us that officer suicide rate within the first 5 years of their retirement is like 30%. It's huge, and and I know why now, because when I got hurt and had to walk away from it,
Hmm.
you go through so many mental things because you're
Yeah,
looking for a purpose again.
yeah,
You have to find who you are. You don't have the adrenaline rush anymore. You don't feel important. Like there's so many things that build up, and it's a mental game. It really is. And I can see that with retirement, because if you don't have something to focus on during your retirement and you go from like actively just having a consistent adrenaline rush, having to watch your back all the time, you're not going through those things anymore and you're literally just sitting at home or doing nothing, it plays a huge mental game on you.
right.
And so I totally it's a lot the same with our kids, coming into this day and age of needing to be somebody, find who they are, and they're trying to force them to do it at such a younger age.
Yeah,
It's like you need to know who you are, like even before you hit high school now. And it's like most people
yeah,
go through college not even knowing that that's the major that they truly want. And so many of them don't even follow that same path that they went to school for, but they're
right.
like forced to know, and I think that pressure on our kids these days is just it's not healthy for them, because it's trying to force them to have this like adult mentality and have this certain expectation that they have to be somebody really early.
Or have to be a certain kind of person or act and
Yeah.
fit in a certain way, or I had this conversation with, a similar conversation with my teenager the other day, and he was just like, "Mom, it's so hard living in this era. Like there's so many people that I just shake my head at and I don't understand, and there's so many things going on that just it's awful." And I was like, I get it. We're living in a world that has a lot of very wounded and angry people in it because our societies are wounded, our world is wounded. And I told him, I said, that's why it's even more important for those of us who can to stand on our morals, stand on our boundaries, stand on our faith, and be that light that that darkness needs,
Yeah,
because our it's going to be important.
it really is, and that's the thing with our kids, right? Is showing them how important it is to be there and just understand like others are going through a lot. They're
Yeah,
not at the same level that you are, and that's okay, no matter what age they are.
yeah.
We just have to be within our own moral compass and just be good people, and that's gonna help in so many ways. And it is tough because we're in a day and age where everything's online.
Hmm.
Everybody's life, everybody's persona, and our kids are watching these social media stars,
Yeah.
who they look up to. And it's like, oh,
Mhm.
well, they're 13 and they have a channel and they're huge and they have this many followers. And so it's like that's their comparison. Like adults were comparing themselves to the
Yeah.
Kardashians when that came out. Our kids are comparing themselves to YouTube stars and
Mhm.
TikTok stars, and so that's the hype that they're trying to live up to. But in like the reality, it's like that's their journey. That's them. Like you don't
Yeah.
just because they discovered that at 13 doesn't mean that you need to. But
Yeah,
how
and it
many
doesn't mean that you're less than because you're not.
exactly, and how many child stars have you and I grown up watching that really made something of their life?
I can count on one hand the child stars that I grew up watching that didn't have mental breakdowns or drug
Yeah.
problems or suicide attempts or like anything else. And the scary part about it is that um even if it's occurring as a child, like the impact can last well into adulthood. Like how
Oh, for
many
sure.
how many of our artists and our actors and everything else have committed suicide as adults because they
Yeah,
just couldn't handle the past anymore.
absolutely. I had a friend in Florida. Him and I were really good friends, and I worked for AAA doing roadside service,
Mhm.
and he worked for a third party contractor, but he was also doing the same thing. So
Yeah.
he was basically picking up our slack when we were too busy.
Mhm.
And him and I got talking one day, and he was retired law enforcement out of um, Rhode Island. So a
Mhm.
little small place, but he was a cop there. But he was having struggles in life after he had left. He'd gotten in a motorcycle accident, broke both his legs, and he had to retire from it.
Yeah.
Well, he lived with his mom and dad for a very long time, and I got to know him. We got talking, and like he'd been going through some stuff himself.
Yeah.
Both his parents were retired. He actually found out that his dad was constantly going to, I think, Thailand because he actually had a wife and a kid over there, and
Ooh.
he didn't know. So, like, yeah, he's juggling all of this. Well, um, I I finally got him a job with AAA because
Yeah.
he'd been wanting to get on with us full time, and so finally I was like, I was able to get him in. And well, one day he ended up in a car accident, and he what happened is he'd taken a bunch of pills, and I didn't know he was suicidal at this point, but
Yeah.
he had taken a bunch of pills while driving, and he veered off and actually went into a car dealership, smashed into a bunch of cars, and hit another one. Well, his foot was like on the gas, and
Oh
so they had to
crap.
break the window to shut the car off. Like it was a whole thing, but he he also had a seizure during that time, and I think it was because of the
Oh
medication.
no.
So
Yeah.
they blamed it on the seizure, and so his mental issues didn't come to the
Weren't
surface.
addressed. Yeah.
Not at all. And so he got everything taken care of. He went back to work and everything. And then I get a phone call one day that he had actually slit his wrist and hung himself in his room, and that did it. But unfortunately, his mom was the one that found him. And
Yeah.
so I'm sure, and he was my age. He was like, well, he was older than me. He was in his early 40s actually, and I was like in my late 30s at the time.
Yeah.
Um, and so you never know. Like you
Yeah.
really don't know what somebody's going through. And many times he wanted to just hang out, but
Yeah.
during that time, like Sherry was pregnant and then she had Carly like right in that same time frame. And so I was
Yeah.
busy being like a new dad and just getting everything back, my life in order.
Yeah.
That I missed the signs and symptoms of him, like what he needed in those moments. But
Well,
I
and
know,
sometimes they're just so subtle
yeah,
that they're hard to catch unless you know the person really well and you're paying attention, which, I mean,
yeah.
it can happen. You have stuff come up in your life and you're focused on that, and you kinda miss out what's happening with someone else.
Mhm. No, absolutely, and it's easy to do, and the only thing you can't do is beat yourself up for it though, right? You
Yeah.
can't just sit there and be like, "Oh, I should have seen it, I should have seen it," and it's like, well, I mean, I see it now
Yeah.
because it's, like, all in my face and all of a sudden, so I do see it now, which means I'll see it, but hopefully I'll see it if it arises again or if I have
Again,
to
yeah.
experience this again. At least I have the knowledge base to understand it more.
Yeah.
But yeah, you really don't. You don't know. And if you just see somebody struggling or you feel that they're struggling, or if they're just trying to spend extra time with you, then, it could be very important for them. And it could be your kids. Maybe your kids are either distancing themselves from you a
Mhm.
lot, and it's because they don't want you to know what's going on. They might feel embarrassed, ashamed,
Yeah.
weak, or they're trying to coddle you more and they're trying to come in and get your attention, get you to do things with them, spend time with them. And that's because they're wanting to be seen, they're wanting to be recognized, they're wanting to be acknowledged for who they are. Because on the outside of you, they're being acknowledged for all of their flaws by
Yeah.
everybody else. And they're coming to you to get the reassurance that none of that's true. And as a parent, that's where, we need to show up for them. But it's a fine line too, because,
Yeah.
how many times have you just like your parents have said something, you're like, well, you're just saying that because you're my mom, or you're just saying that because you're my wife or you're my husband.
Mhm.
Right? So it's, like, hard for us to accept that, and if our child is getting bullied, or us or your spouse or whoever is getting bullied, reassuring them is important, but being able to do it in a way that it's like, "This isn't coming from a place that I have to say this, but,
Yeah.
like, I legitimately mean what I'm saying because this is legitimately how I view you." And that's just so
Right.
important with building that confidence in them and building that trust. So that way, they know who to come to if things aren't going well. Like if they go to tell a teacher or a counselor and they're
Yeah.
not being heard, at least they have the confidence and like, you know what, my parents will listen to me. I
Yeah.
know I can go to them. I know they're going to be honest with me. I know that we can have a heartfelt conversation and we can come to get to the bottom of all of this and refix it how it needs to be fixed and address it the way it needs to be.
Yeah, and I mean, and any deviation from like their normal like behavior, you always want to pay close attention, and especially if you know that you have a kiddo with those extra risk factors, like then it's even more important to pay attention because aside from like just horrible bullying at school, like I had like two girls in fifth, sixth grade and junior high that just absolutely like, it was insane. My big sister actually showed up at school and gave them a talking to back them off because it was getting bad. And then other instances, throughout school, like, I had a really hard time with bullies, but I also had, active sexual abuse going on from the time I was 5 years old. My parents had a really ugly divorce and child custody battle where my brother and I were put in the middle and there was side picking involved and domestic abuse at home, mental illness that ran rampant in the family, alcoholism and drug abuse that ran rampant in the family. Like there were so many things going on that just compounded everything.
Right. And with all of that leading up, was what what did you find your outlet to be? You didn't even have an outlet for all of that either, right?
I I shut down and quit talking about things that were going on at about 11, 12 years old. By the time I was 13, I'd made my first suicide attempt and I didn't tell anybody. I planned very secretly and waited for an opportunity where everyone was going to be gone and I couldn't be interrupted or stopped. I was, thankfully. Um but my family had a hard time after that, and I didn't give up on it either. Like, I fought my mom probably 3 or 4 years, constantly looking for a way to make another attempt until I was, like, 16, 15, 16, and I finally just kinda gave up on all of it. Like,
And
and just
what was it that like caused you to give up? Like was it just the
I
the
just
failed attempt after failed attempt, or did you find a different like aspect of life?
I just got to a point where I just disassociated from everything. And it it just like I was looking for something to, you know, show myself, okay, it's worth it to stay. But it took me a really long time to get there. I think I was honestly, I had issues with ideation all the way up and into my 30s, and that was always my warning sign that I was in trouble when I started thinking that way again. Um because it was just that was my cue that uh I was overdone. Like I'd reached the end of my rope. I couldn't cope anymore, and my system was just falling apart. And I remember I remember viewing it as it was an escape. It was a way to get out. It was a way to make the pain stop hurting. And I remember like I had like several therapists and went to several like intervention groups and different things like that. I was in I had an IEP and I was in special education so that I had support at school. But I just was done, and I kept saying that I wanted to go home, like to heaven, because to me heaven meant no more pain.
Yeah, so you were in a way too, kind of just refusing to even cooperate
Yeah.
with the healing journey in itself.
Yeah, I kept trying to run away from home. I When I couldn't run away, I'd get angry and aggressive to try and protect myself and keep people away from me, and I'd just isolate, like, totally.
Now, knowing what you know now, is there something in those moments that you know that like that you wanted or needed, like that that version of you, that 13-year-old, 14, 15-year-old? Like, do you know now what that is that you were looking for? That if a parent or guardian or somebody came to you, what could they have given you to bring you back around or to kind of make you want to start healing?
Looking back, I think the thing that I was angry and hopeless about was, that I mean, even though I wasn't talking about it, I needed someone to look deeper and realize what was going on that wasn't being talked about, the sexual abuse and other things that were going on behind the scenes, and the bullying at school just exacerbated it because I didn't feel like I could connect to the adults in my life, and I couldn't interact successfully with my peers because no matter what I tried to do, I was always the weird freak, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So, it was like I just felt like I had nowhere and no one to go to, and I honestly believed that I was such a problem that people would be relieved if I was gone.
Oh, then that's pretty normal to feel that way, honestly, because you
Mhm.
feel like you're a burden,
Yeah,
in a big way. Like, is there a way that your mom could have approached you? And I'm only asking this as a way of like, if somebody's going through this right now, it's like,
yeah.
how could you approach their loved one or their child and get them to open up? Because a lot of times an adult can see that their child is shut down and they can
Yeah.
see that their child, like, I know that you need to talk. I know you have something on your mind. And I think almost all parents can recognize that. But I think what most parents don't have the skill to do is to know what approach to take. Like, how do I get you to open up and have that confidence and confide in me about what you have going on?
Yeah, I mean, what we had going against us was there was such a prevalence of mental illness in our family that when I because when she found me, because what I did was I took an old cord from a Halloween costume and I hid it in my dresser drawer. And then my mom took my little sister into town to go grocery shopping for the week. And I knew that the store was like a 45-minute drive and then an hour of shopping and then a 45-minute drive home. So, and typically, if I went in my room and shut the door, everybody just assumed that I was reading and left me alone. So I waited for my mom and my sister to pull out because we had this huge driveway on our house at the time. And I waited for her to pull out of the driveway and like get down the road to where I couldn't see her car anymore. And I went into my room and I shut the door and I grabbed the cord out of out of my dresser, and then I went in my closet and tried to strangle myself with it. And if my sister hadn't have forgotten her jacket and asked my mom to turn around, I would have been successful. I just about uh lost consciousness and was having difficulty breathing because I had it so tight. And unfortunately, it was my baby sister who found me because she came back for her jacket and opened the closet. And my mom was able to come in and get the cord off my neck and get me breathing again. And then she immediately took me to like the ER room and they put me in the PACT unit on a 24-hour hold. And I went and stayed at a juvenile psychiatric hospital off and on. um, but because I wasn't talking about everything that was going on, and the hard part was that I was disassociating from things as soon as they happened. So something would happen and then I'd just crush it down and didn't even really have a memory. I just understood that I was in pain and something was wrong. Um,
Yeah.
but they diagnosed me with bipolar type 2. And so, like, once I had that diagnosis, the doctors were just like, "Oh, well, take medications and she'll be fine." But no, because it was much, much more than that. And as an adult, I was reassessed, and they actually threw that diagnosis out, and they were like, "No, darling, you don't have bipolar. You have CPTSD, bad, and you've had it for a long time." But I mean, in my case, um, I mean, there were a lot of things going on at the time. Life was not easy. It was super chaotic. But I think just like digging deeper. I really just needed someone to dig deeper and keep asking me questions and like not let me run away from it.
Yeah, just keep asking until they open up. Like,
Yeah, which was
don't
hard because I was a locked book, man. I was like, mm-mm.
yeah, and it's like you don't wanna justify it either, right? It's like I can justify the feeling that you're having, that you are going through
Yeah,
something, you're experiencing something, you need to talk about it. But, like, we can't justify your actions or reactions or behavior, because you still have the accountability for it, right?
yeah,
But it's like, what is causing you to go to this route? Like, what is really bringing you to here? And the problem I think a lot of people have is it when it comes to needing to have the honesty with themselves, the accountability with themselves, those are
yeah,
the most difficult things because a lot of times when you're getting beaten down by someone else mentally, physically, emotionally, however it works, you lose trust in everyone around you, and a
hmm
lot of the times because you lose trust in yourself. And
yeah,
then it's hard to bring somebody else into it because you a lot of times might be ashamed, you might be embarrassed, you
yeah,
might just not want to bring them into it. It might be just you're scared of everything, or maybe you're afraid that they feel that same way too. And, you kind of turn the world against you unknowingly. And
yeah,
it's something that we tend to do to ourselves in those moments. Um, but yeah, if you have somebody that's going through it, honestly, the best thing is to let them talk and don't sit and try to give them justifications of why people act the way they do.
but no
But
judgment either.
but no judgment, right? It's like,
Yeah,
you can't sit there and be like, "Oh, yeah, well, they're a piece of shit," and da 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 da. It's like, yeah, they probably have a lot of things going on in their life.
yeah,
I'm not justifying them. I'm not justifying their actions. However, you can't control how they behave.
yeah,
And it's a shame that they behave that way towards you. However, that stuff's not true.
yeah,
And it's about being able to walk our loved ones through the steps of them recognizing themselves. So
yeah,
that way they can see it as a mirror, that it's not them that's causing it or bringing it forward, but it's really the other person's reflection that's
yeah,
causing all of the hatred. And I think that that can have a huge impact on just their own mental selves in those
yeah.
moments. Because mental health it's so rampant right now, and
It
they
is.
like all of our kids have been just plugged with medication and medication and medication, rather than just sitting down with them. And it's like,
Yeah.
understand your energy, understand your chakras, understand who you are, understand what you want, what's your passions, right?
What
Um,
keeps you hopeful? What keeps you here? What makes you wanna keep trying? And it
yeah,
wasn't that it wasn't that my mom didn't try because she did. She fought me tooth and nail, and I was bigger than her, by the time I was a teenager, I was, like, already, 3, 4 inches taller than her, so standing up to me was
yeah.
not easy because my 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 mom is a small woman, but but she did see some of the signs that there was something going on, and she was trying to get me help, but I had other family members that were just like, oh, it's just a behavior problem, she just, she needs discipline, rah, 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 rah. And like, I listened to that too, and it
Mhm.
like it really made me think that I really was just a problem. And then I also like believed to my core, based on, the observational evidence that I'd collected as a young girl, at like 12, 13 years old. I honestly believed that the abuse was never going to end, that I was never going to get away from it, that no one was ever going to see it and pull me out of it. And I didn't want to live the rest of my life hurting that bad. I was like, tap out. I'm done. I cannot do this.
Yeah, and you can only take so much for so long,
Mhm.
and we learn that as an adult when we go from one relationship to another relationship or from one job to another job, but as an adult, you have that ability to make the conscious choice to, I'm bailing out of this and going somewhere else.
Yeah.
But as a child, like you really feel very limited, like you're
Mhm.
on a deserted island and there's really no escape from what's happening,
No,
because you
because
have nowhere to turn and no one to confide in, and it's not an easy thing to navigate.
yeah, and I did have people that I could confide in, but by that point, I was just so mistrustful of anyone that I kept my mouth
Mhm.
sealed shut, because like I had family members that told me my abuse was my own fault, that I was causing it somehow. So I had all of these things going around in my head. And then, all the bullies at school totally tearing my self esteem apart. Everything about me was stupid or weird or poor or, like I got made fun of in the
Yeah.
locker room for having shoes from Payless. Payless.
Kids were mean, man.
Like, it got it, and then, like, ridiculed and mocked because I was a little heavy, because I already
Mhm.
was having problems with eating disorders by that age, and food was comfort, and it got to the point where, like, I wouldn't even change in front of the other girls. I'd take my clothes and go change in the bathroom stalls so that nobody could see me and nobody could make fun of me or try to beat me up or anything else.
Yeah, and that's tough, and, like, growing up in that day and age, like, in the '80s, '90s, like, that's how it was,
Mhm.
and you really just you couldn't deal with it or couldn't talk about it, and it's no different than it is these days. But unfortunately, instead of over the transition of the last 20 to 40 years, instead of letting people actually express themselves, instead of showing them that there's more out there or a better way, it's just been suppress it, and then medicate it to
Yeah.
really disguise it and hide it, instead of really realizing that it's such a bigger problem than at the lower level. Because if I don't know, I watched the presidential debate last night. I don't know if you watched it or not, but
I
it
watched it the following morning, and oh my.
it turned into a pissing match.
It
It
was.
was 2 people bullying each other is really what that turned into. So it's like the president of the United States, which when I was a child was the one job that everybody looked at and go, "Man, if you're president, you're the man. Like, you are it. Like, there's no
Yeah.
higher than that." And
Yeah.
now as adults, we're sitting here looking at the 2 of you going, "What in the f is wrong with you 2? Like, you
Yeah,
can't
like,
even just have a
I wanna hear
conversation
about your
about shit."
policies, not the problems you have with each other.
For absolutely, and it's like it started off that way in a way, which I mean, I'm not gonna get political about any of it
Yeah.
because it's like one way or the other, right?
It's a good example of a really unhealthy interaction.
Absolutely, and this is what everybody's watching. This
Mhm.
is what everybody's being influenced with between this, the news that isn't even real, social media, where again, like that's all social media is. It's about popularity. It's about like you have trolls that go in there and they talk crap on your live when you're live streaming, but the thing is views, comments, all of that stuff equals money in
Yeah.
the end, right?
Well, and
So
let's be honest, how many people are transparent on social media? Like, even I have a tendency to, like, only post the positive stuff and not be vulnerable when things are going on and I'm having a hard time. Something that
yeah.
I've been, working on lately because one of the things I wanna do is be that transparent person online and go, "Look, yeah, my life is going to crap right now, but"
Going going through some shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know? So
Yeah. Well, and like, so that's what people want, right? People want to be able to identify with what you have going on, which is why it helps them grow because they say, wow, you're strong. Like, you can get through this. You're working through this. But you have to be ready to accept that there's going to be negativity that comes with it, no
yeah,
matter what you do. And the moment you can accept that and not let that negativity affect you energetically at all, then you know that at that point, it's like, I'm pretty solid. I know that I'm fine. I'm not going to be influenced or bothered by this. um, it's like Sherry, she was showing me that somebody she follows, and the it's a man and woman, male, husband and wife,
mhm.
and the wife makes reusable pads for women.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah, right. I thought it was really cool too. It was like, that makes sense, and but she's too shy to be on camera, so he does
Ah.
all the promoting for her. You know how much flack he gets for being a man promoting reusable pads? So much, so many negative comments. Like they trash him all over the place, but he makes videos about it, and he's like, "Look, you can talk trash all you want. I basically say verbatim what my wife wants me to say. If she's not happy with the video, I have to redo it until she's happy with it." So in reality, it's coming from the woman. It's just the face of a man because, well, I'm her biggest supporter, you know. Oh, she
Yeah.
was getting. Oh, Sherry said she was getting bullied, and that's why she stopped doing it.
Oh.
But he made a comment the other day to somebody that just went through and trashed them in comments, and he says, "Hey, bud, thanks for the $150. I get paid $10 for each comment that you make on here."
Ha ha.
So, it's like take the good with the
It's
bad. Like
it's
it's
so
there.
unnecessary. It's
It is.
so unnecessary.
And
And I see it all the time because, like, I'm on social media, talking to friends, talking to family, doing my biz thing and, putting my posts out there, and there's just so much negativity. It's
yeah.
crushing.
I was like, I'll be watching the kids play games or I'll be playing games online, and just the trash talking and the roasting
Mhm.
from anywhere from like 9 years old to 14 years old, 18 years old. Like it's insane how savage it gets on there. And you're just like,
Well, and our kids are watching this and they're learning that it's normal.
yeah.
It's not.
No, and they're participating in it in certain ways themselves, whether it's an innocent way or not. But like you're still seeing it and feeling it, and it's just, it's like if you're gonna be involved in certain things, like I think that's the biggest thing to take away is like you have to have thick skin and understanding. There's gonna be lashback in everything I do, and we've seen that with everybody from child stars to current adult stars,
Yeah.
and just you get torn up one side down the other. So if you want to be seen in the public eye, like be ready and don't let it influence you. But even if you don't want to be in the public eye, just know that if somebody's picking on you, bullying you, it's not you and it's
You
not your
triggered
fault.
something in them.
You did, and, it's there's things that are out of your control, whether it's the clothes that you wear because that's all you can afford, or the house that you come from because that's just who your family is right now. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter, like, that's just who you are, and it's meant to build your characteristic of you in that now moment, but you have that ability to change, that part of you. Just don't ever try to change yourself to make yourself liked by someone who's picking on you, or to become a
Yeah.
version of somebody that you're just not because you think it's gonna make other people like you. They will never be there for you.
It's just gonna compound the issue because I did the same thing.
It
Like,
will,
I got
and
to a point where I was like, "Okay, I'll just be what everybody wants me to be, and then I'll be
yeah.
accepted, and then I'll be happy, and then I'll be okay," but all I did was cram all that garbage down even farther and hurt myself
Mhm.
because I was trying to live up to impossible expectations.
And the truth is when shit hits the fan in your life, the ones who accept you for that version of you are gonna be the ones that have your back. The
Yeah,
ones that you're trying to mold yourself to will never have your back. But if you try to mold yourself into that person that you're not, the ones that were accepting you for who you were are no longer gonna accept you for who you are because you're not that person anymore, and you're changing yourself in a very unhealthy way.
yeah. Um, so signs to watch out for. If you think that someone might be struggling with suicidal ideation, um, talking about suicide or self-harming behavior, talking about wanting to die or disappear, talking, writing, or drawing about death, giving away their belongings, withdrawing from family and friends, being angry and hostile, or the flip side of that, being disassociating and just not caring about anything anymore. Risky behaviors such as, driving too fast or, the stupid things that we do when we're just checked out, using drugs and alcohol, changes in eating and sleeping habits, such as eating less or sleeping more than usual, any depression and anxiety, and worsening grades or creative work. Honestly, I think there's only like two things, two or three things on this list that I did not have going on because like I remember that early on, like I did talk to my mom about it, and then I stopped talking about it. Um, and I drew some um really graphic and disturbing pictures. And unfortunately they were given to the doctors, but then we never got the drawings back. I do remember one or two of them. So because like, now that I'm on the other side of it, it would be really cool to have those drawings and put them in my memoir as examples of, look, if your kid is drawing this, that's a big red flag. Like,
Yeah.
um,
Well, and, like,
and it,
the
and I did withdraw from the friends and family, and I remember sleeping a lot, and my grades tanked. I was a straight A student for almost my entire academic career, and then like when I was 12, 13, I went from straight A's to all D's and F's.
Yeah, that can be a huge, like, red flag, and then we have to keep in mind too that not all of these are like a tell all be all of, if they're going through these, then like this is definitely going on in their life, and I
Right.
say that because like for me, like I'm drawn to darker things anyway. So like writing darker stories, drawing darker pictures,
Yeah.
things like that for me, it's always held my interest. And so,
Well,
it's
I'm
like
into that stuff
you
now, but, like, when I was
definitely
9, 10 years old, I was reading about unicorns and mermaids, so
oh, like, not me, I was like the Tales from the Crypt kid, like, I loved that stuff at that age, like, I was always been to, like, that death and darker part of
I
life,
liked Goosebumps.
you
I
know?
read Goosebumps furiously.
So, it's like
And
you have to keep in mind though, it's like you might have 1 or 2 of these things, like your kid might be displaying it, but and like some of the risk things, they might just have high adrenaline because they love adrenaline, so it's like just because
yeah.
1 or 2 of the things that is happening in their life doesn't mean like, oh my God, my kid's like getting bullied or, is thinking about suicide. It's like you have to put these pieces together gradually of like, okay, like, is this a consistent thing that's happening?
Yeah.
Or like, is just this kind of who they are? We have to keep that in mind. Because we can't just jump to conclusions either. But it's just, you got to be there for them. And, just really ask yourself, what's going on in my life? What's going on in my child's life?
Yeah.
What is going on in our environment? Is any of this influential to them? And just seeing all those telltale signs, from one end of the spectrum to the other, and just being able to make that connection with them.
Right. Well, and my story is an extreme case. Like I had a lot of things on all the lists, but I was a very extreme case. Some kids are only going to have like one or two things going on. You're only going to pick up on like maybe a couple of warning signs. And it's also important to point out that like while bullying and suicide are related, those extra risk factors are very, very important to pay attention to, because the relationship between bullying and suicide, it's not causal, it's relational. It's like this and this and this and this and this and this makes the risk go through the roof, depending on like how
Yeah.
many things are going on with the individual kid. I remember I didn't have my teaching credential yet. I was living in Lemoore, and I was working for the county in their moderate to severe program as a behavior aide. And so I was bouncing around from site to site to site. I pretty much got sent wherever they needed me. And I spent a lot of time at one of the high schools because there was a student there that was having some real issues. And so I was doing intervention. And there was another student, I'll call him Dean. I don't know, just some random name. But he was mainstream. He only used to come in to get like a little bit support, and we kept a coffee maker in the classroom for him because he had wicked ADHD. And so he'd come in and get a cup of coffee a couple times a day. And usually he'd sit back there and he was really chatty and he was really energetic and just a positive kid. And I slowly started noticing that he was coming less and less often for his coffee. When he did come, he was very quiet and withdrawn. And there was one day that he didn't talk to me at all. And he was actually supposed to be in another class for the day, but he just came in and got his cup of coffee and sat in the kitchen. And I was just like, because the county classrooms, they're full facilities. Um, but I remember talking to him, and it felt weird. And I was just like, what's going on with you, dude? You don't seem okay. Why aren't you in class? Like you should be in class right now. And he was just like, oh, like I just didn't want to go. And I'm like, it's art class. You love art class. Why are you not in art class? Like, and I finally got it out of him that he was waiting for an opportunity to jump the fence and take off from school. And that was when I was like, if he leaves this campus, he's not coming back. And so I looked at him and I said, you gonna leave and hurt yourself? And like me being that blunt, like really shocked him because he was like, what? And I oh gosh, I don't even remember why I really did it, but I pulled up my sleeve. I have a tattoo covering it up now, but I still have scars on my wrist from where I used to cut and self-injure. And so I showed him the scars on my wrist. I said, I know exactly what you're leaving campus to do, and if you can trust me, I can help you. And so he decided to, and I I spoke to the teacher, and within like a half an hour, there was an ambulance on the way, and they 5150'd him. Come to find out, like his mother wasn't in the picture, and he had a real rough relationship with his stepmom, and his dad was gone all the time, and he was just a really angry
Mm,
kid. And then there were also other diagnoses lying underneath the ADHD, because this poor kid, like his brain was going a million miles a minute all the time.
With
And
nothing to
so
focus on.
right, and
Yeah.
so he got sent to, a psychiatric center down south where he was able to get some help, and he was able to get some diagnoses and medications that he needed, and I remember at his high school graduation, his stepmom came up and hugged me, and she was like, "Thank you, because he wouldn't be here if you hadn't noticed something was wrong."
Yeah, and it's huge because it might not be family that recognizes it, and
Yeah,
that's why it's just so important that we, I think, talk about this and really bring it to the surface because
I just
you
knew that something was off. I was like,
yeah,
this is not normal."
and
Dean, that's the name I
it
used, right? Dean?
yeah, and it could be something as simple as just having a pleasant conversation with somebody as if they were a human being to make them feel like, "You know what? I do belong in this world." Like, somebody actually sees me as a person.
Yeah,
And it's just huge, and it could be you running into somebody at the grocery store, having a simple conversation at the grocery store with somebody, and you may have just changed their whole entire life because of that simple conversation that you had with them. Like,
yeah.
you don't know, right?
And a lot of times, like, they just need to know that somebody understands or that somebody wants to understand. Like,
Mm,
generally, they
yeah.
because there's several students and people that I've ended up working with that were struggling with that, and the common factor across them all was that they just wanted someone to try to understand.
Just
Like,
listen to
not
them.
placate them, not
Yeah,
gaslight and dismiss them, not, like, shame them or downplay it, like, just try to understand.
yeah.
Because even if you can't, like, fully understand because you've never experienced it or even experienced in the same way, just the attempt to understand will often break the ice. Because, like, with this kiddo, he was super, super defensive until I pulled up my wrist and showed him his scars. I said, "I don't know what's going on with you, but I know a lot about the choice you're thinking about making, and I can tell you it is not worth it."
Yeah. No, 100%, it's definitely something to be aware of, and the one thing that I have learned too, because, a lot of this day and age, it's like kids have a hard time being focused on things, and just, like, thinking about it when I was in school too, like, I never wanted to focus on anything, so what I've myself have learned is if you help them find their focus rather than subject them to the things that hold no interest to them, then you'll be able to find in a lot deeper way, your kids' happiness, the things that catch their attention, the things that are, they might be struggling with. Because when you're in school, you have those things you have interest against or with, but then you have like classes that you have zero interest in, and you
Right.
might struggle in those, and so that also brings on a whole nother realm of things too. And so when they don't have anything that keeps their focus or something that they're working towards, then they're gonna turn their attention to something else, something or someone else as well. So it's also not just about recognizing like that your kids are being bullied, but it's even about recognizing like, is your kid the bully?
Yeah, because
You know?
it can be both, and, like, it sucks to have to, you know, look in the mirror and realize, I need to do something because my child's behavior is
Yeah.
harmful."
And it might not even be the fact that you have a poor relationship or that you treat your children poor, but you might have such a busy life that you are either a single parent and you don't have time to be with them, or both of you are working so much to maintain the lifestyle that you have that you're, again, not involved in your child's personal life. And
Yeah,
so, them bullying other kids is obviously something that they're potentially learning with the videos they're watching, the shows that they're watching, the music that they're listening to. You have all of that influencing from the outside. And if you're an absentee parent, not by your own fault,
yeah,
some
no,
of the
I mean,
time,
things
you
are
know,
things are wicked nowadays. I
things are
mean,
busy,
they like, you have to have 2 incomes to support a family now.
You
It's
got to have
it's
5 incomes
insane.
just to go grocery shopping.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's insane.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So we just have to be aware of that, right? And aware of like how our children's behavior is and what's happening.
No.
Um, so what's crazy is before we wrap this up, I pulled some tarot cards.
Oh, cool.
So I kind of wanted to go through those before we end this too. So we'll go through
Cool.
this slide and then,
Yeah.
yeah.
So just some things that if you think your kiddo might be showing signs of distress, might be showing some might be struggling with suicidal ideation, or just generally if they're having a hard time, like that connection to you is so important. So like you want to be able to listen to both the verbal and the nonverbal signs of distress and watch for the risk factors, because like I said, they don't always talk about it, so you have to watch how they're silently communicating too. Keep an eye on social media, because again, bullying happens both online and offline, and a lot of the times the online where everybody in the world can see it is even worse.
Oh yeah.
um if they open up a little bit and tell you that they are feeling that way and they are thinking about it, do not freak out. Remain calm. Ask honest and loving questions. You don't want to shut them down with your distress or your anger or your misunderstanding. What they need the most is that connection from you. And if they do admit that they have been contemplating it, get help right away. Do not dismiss it. It is not teenage drama. It is life threatening and it is very serious.
Yeah,
Um,
real quick too, like if your kid comes to you and like they're opening up to you about it, it like you said earlier, it's very important not to get angry,
yeah,
at that person that's doing it or getting pissed, like, oh, I'm gonna beat them up, or I'm gonna go talk to your parents, or just like something that's confrontational. It's important not to express that in that moment either, because that can shut them down and put fear into them to not want to come forward, or just that fear of confrontation, or oh my god, if something is said, then it's going to be worse for me the next day.
yeah.
So
I
it's
mean,
important that you remain calm so you can hear the whole thing and then collectively understand through your own consciousness of like, okay, what is the best course of action for this?
yeah, I mean, like, you're gonna have your own feelings. You're gonna have fear. You're gonna have anger. You're gonna have, confusion. But it's really important in that moment to not freak out on them. Even if you like, even if they don't come to you openly and you like catch them. Because I remember one time, I had the carving in my wrist that I had done, and I fell asleep in my room, and my arm was thrown up over my head, and my mom found it, and she was really upset, and like just her level of distress, like I went boom, closed book, shut down
Yeah.
entirely, because like then I was afraid of the interaction, and like or is she gonna like be ashamed of me, is she gonna be angry of me, is she gonna be like like they're gonna start, their minds are gonna start going a million
Yeah.
miles an hour and coming up with reasons not to open up anymore.
I have to
um
explain
and
myself and all of
yeah,
that. Mhm.
and like it's a very normal reaction. I mean, you walk in and you find your kid is hurting yourself. Of course you're going to be upset. Of course you're going to be angry. Of course you're going to be reeling, but like that moment is not the time for it. You want to make sure that you're responding with empathy and trying to create understanding, because they need that safe place in order to be honest.
Exactly.
Another step is remove and secure weapons, medications, or any other household items that could be used in an attempt. Now, someone who's really determined is going to get creative. So you have to, you kind of have to know your person, and and just work with them. And I remember certain times when I was, older and more along the way, that feeling would come up again and I'd get scared. And so I would voluntarily collect my stuff and say, hold on to this for me because I had like a cool dagger and I had, like all these different things. And I was like, hold on this for me. I can't have this right now. Like you need to keep it away from me. And you always want to focus on creating hope, like something for them to hold on to. I know that my grandma used to take me to the library a lot so that I could check out any book that I wanted because I absolutely loved reading. And my grandpa was a horse rancher, and so like after really rough hospital stays, my mom would pick me up from the hospital and we'd go straight up to the mountains. My grandpa would put me on a horse and let me loose.
Sounds like therapy in a way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and then I was in a peer support group, and even though I was intimidated about doing the group discussions, I had a counselor that understood that I wasn't ready for that, and she took me into the craft room, and I just sat there and did crafts for my whole 2-hour session, and she just let me ramble. She probably got total diamonds of material from me just sitting there rambling, ADHD, blah 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 blah, as I'm, making my arts and crafts because that was something that I loved to do and it was something that relaxed me. So, also you want to encourage them to reach out to family and friends because they will withdraw and they will start shutting down, and we really really need those connections in that mind frame. And then like self-care, getting enough sleep, exercising, go on a walk with them, even around the neighborhood. Like the positive chemicals that just a walk,
Oh, yeah. It
will stimulate it. It helps. And then it's a rough road. And sometimes it can take a couple of years, sometimes it can take decades to get over. And so they really just need to be reminded that even though it's going to take time and it's not going to go away right away, they're not alone in it.
Yeah. And even during this whole time too, it's just important also to make them take responsibility for their actions
Mhm.
as well. Because as much as you want to be there for them and coddle them, they also still need to understand the full repercussions of all choices that they make during this time, and not just on them, but like how it influences everyone that's connected to them. If something was to happen, or just even the actions that they're taking alone. And it's not in a way that puts blame on them for the hardship, the emotional toll, and all of that, but it's just a way so that they understand. Like, you realize if you do A, B, and C, it's gonna extremely affect X, Y, and Z.
Yeah,
Not
it's a
not
permanent decision, and there are people that love you and
Yeah,
want you here, and like it would devastate us and break our hearts to have you gone. Like not
and
in a
there's
shaming way, but in
yeah.
a stay with me.
Absolutely, and there's a huge difference between saying, "Oh, well, because you did this, now your father and I are gonna have to pay this medical bill. We're gonna have to do this. We're gonna have to take time off of work." At that point, you're making them a burden in your life,
Yeah. And they
you
already
know?
feel like a burden usually.
Exactly. So it's not about what you did, but it's about moving forward. It's about the now. It's like, okay, like this is what we're dealing with. This is what we're working through. This is what we all understand. Like, this is how we can be there for each other, and just let them know how you can be there for them. But again, hold them accountable for everything that they have done and for the potential actions as well. So they fully understand the consequences of all of this. It's like you're not going to respawn into a better version of you. Like, it's just not going to happen if you do that,
Yeah,
because you
no,
have to
it's
actively make
final.
it work. Exactly.
It's final. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just important to stay aware, stay vigilant, and stay positive, because staying in a positive mentality is going to absolutely help your loved ones and yourself.
I'm disappointed with my slides tonight. I don't know what happened to them. But here's a list of the articles and the resources. The first one is a really great study from the CDC. And then there's articles from Kaiser Permanente and healthychildren.org. And if you or someone you know is struggling and is thinking about suicide or thinking about harming themselves, please, 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 please do not wait. Dial the lifeline 988 and somebody's going to be on the other side of the phone to help you.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just a conversation. That's all that needs
Mhm.
to happen is just a simple conversation that helps you walk back towards the light and away from the darkness that you're facing.
Yeah.
So, uh, so if you are facing in your life these obstacles or these circumstances, or if you know somebody that is, uh, there's a very easy way to guide them back into that light itself. And the cards I pulled are kind of going to give us this step by step of instructions of what do we need to make this happen in our life, right? So the first card was a grounding card, which
Mm.
that's a given, right? Like
Yeah.
we have to be grounded. If you see that they're distraught, get them grounded. Get their feet
Security is so important.
Get their feet in water, get their feet on the ground, hug them, embrace them, make them feel safe and secure, and make them feel stable within their own foundation. It's going to be a huge key to the start of it. Well, the next card was energy, which means you're responsible for your own energy. You're not responsible for others' energy, but you're responsible for what you tether to. So that's very important to remember, but letting that person know you are responsible for your energy, your emotions, how you process this, how you feel through this. You are the one that's in control of this, not someone else. Because most of
Yeah.
the time, they think that it's coming from an outside factor. When we have to remind them, no, no, that's your energy that you're dealing with, not somebody else. Now, once they can have control of the energy, the asteroid card is about maneuvering under, around all of the obstacles. So, what happens when you're in control of your energy? You have this newfound awareness, you're very conscious. You can handle the bullies that are in your way. You can handle people coming down on you. You can handle the things that are happening in life and not take them so personal.
Yeah.
Because even as adults, your boss might come down on you, and it's up to you to not take that personal, but just to look at it as this is what it is.
Mhm.
Uh, but by doing that and by being able to maneuver through that, you're going to be able to have the push to get up and go. So the Mars card, it's about being able to give ourselves or our loved ones that are struggling a reason to get up and go, a reason to get out of bed in the morning. Because most of the time, they don't have a reason. And their reasoning for
Mhm.
staying in bed is way better than any reason to get out of bed. So make sure that they have something to focus on, even if it's just a model toy, a remote control toy, drawing, just something that can just like makes them want to get up. Like, I want to do this first thing in the morning because this is going to bring me happiness. And if they can have that set of happiness instilled in them and still feel confident with that, this is what brings me happiness, and not let others tear that away from them, then you're building that trust and confidence in themselves.
Even the simplest of joys can keep that small spark going.
Absolutely, but we have to remember that simplest of joy could also create bullying down the road if
Yeah.
somebody else finds out, "Oh, you enjoy coloring and you're 16 years old." Like, that can really bring in a lot more bullying, but if this person is like, "Yeah, I color, so fucking what?" Then it's done. Like, they don't have control of it, and that's the
Yeah.
confidence that you wanna instill in them, right? Like, if you wanna join plays and, play the part of a female and you're a male just because you think it would be fun, or if you wanna dress up in something because it's the part of the play and it's something you wanna do, like, it's about embracing that with confidence and not letting others tear it away, which is where the sacral chakra comes in. It's about being in full control of your feelings, your emotions, knowing who you are, that sense of like, um, just the sense of your needs and your desires, you understand them, and you're not going to let others influence what you enjoy in life. And then Next card is the solar plexus, which allows you to completely love yourself, stand up for yourself, and it's about knowing who you are. Like this is who I am. Like I'm sorry that you feel like you need to tear me apart because you don't know who you are,
Yeah.
but this is who I am right now. It's not who I'm going to be forever, but this is just who I'm choosing in this moment, and I give myself permission to adapt
Yeah.
over time because my experiences are going to adjust my adaptation of where I want to go.
Yeah.
So it's important because if we don't focus on those steps, then the Pluto card is telling us that we're just going to get hit with a ton of bricks of just lesson after lesson after lesson because I am not listening to myself. I'm not listening to my intuition. I'm not trusting my emotions. I don't know who I am, and I'm letting everything else influence and run my life. So that Pluto card is there to let us know like these steps are so important for us to take. And by doing so, you have the enlightenment card, which is about feeling like that heaven on earth, the endless possibilities in life. It's about just having that sense of awareness of who you are, who everyone else is, who you want to be, where you want to go, and just realizing I don't care what everybody says about me. I enjoy what I do, and that makes me feel like I'm on cloud nine, and that's where I want to be. Um, because karma, we all know what karma is, and we know what karma does. We want to act in the best of our intentions. We want to go in the direction that our life wants us to go. And so it's about doing things ethically and morally in our own way. But we also understand that if we act in a certain way, no matter what somebody else has done to us, eye for an eye, is not a thing. We at times have to take the bigger road but by doing so, we're letting the universe handle karma in a way that it sees fit rather than you trying to be judge, jury, and executioner in someone else's life. What's important out of all of this, though, is we operate from the space of the heart chakra. This was the last card that popped out. And it's like, hey, amongst all of the bullshit you go through, remember you're operating from a space of the heart, which means you're holding a space of love for everyone, no matter what they've done to you, no matter what experience you shared with them, no matter how they approached you. It's just important that you know what? I wish the best for you. I don't have to be in love with you. I don't even have to love you. But my heart says, I wish what's best for you. I wish that you get the life that you deserve, the life that you're creating, however that may be. And if it's going down a bad road, then that's what you choose. Those are your lessons to learn, not mine. But I can hold the space that whatever's good for you because that's what I'm holding the space for myself. And so I think if our kids can just understand this at such a deeper level, then I think that things could be really different, and if we could just I don't know, I personally think if we were to teach kids about chakras and their energy and grounding, and all of these things even within the school system, I think it could really show them a whole nother side of what life is
Yeah.
rather than a lot of the shit that they're just having to experience and use Google to navigate through.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that compassion is needed. Compassion for each other, compassion for self, and again, like that that safety and I work, I mean, really hard. One of my boys has problems with bullies at school because he struggles with social interactions, and so he'll come home upset, and we just talk about it, and I'm like, you know what, it doesn't mean anything about you. You are an awesome kid, and you just keep being you, and your right people are going to come along.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's going to be a small group.
Hmm.
It really is every time, and eventually it might grow bigger, but, that's the one thing to remember with every group that you're in, you're
Yeah.
never gonna be everybody's cup of tea.
No, I have like 4 or 5 people that are like my tribe, like, and that's
Yeah,
really all I need. So,
exactly, and I understand all the rest of them. 'Em, they're either gonna be behind me and support me, or they're gonna be against me.
yeah.
Either way, that's up to you though. If you choose to stick around, great. If you don't, then whatever. If you want to try and tear me apart on the way out, so be it. Like that's on you at this point.
Yeah, so say what you're gonna say. I can do that now. It was really hard a long time long time ago, but now I can
Yeah.
be like, "Whatever.
And that's what we're
It
showing our
hurts my
kids.
feelings a little bit, but whatever."
Like, I'm not saying it doesn't sting. It can sting a little bit,
Oh,
but
yeah.
it is what it is, right? So, all right. So, what do we have for our inner child challenge?
So in knowing that it is suicide awareness month, and that's our topic, I am going to challenge everyone to reach out. If you are someone that is struggling and having a hard time, then choose someone that you feel safe to reach out to, even if it's that hotline. And if you know someone that is going through a hard time, you be the one to reach out to them and give them an ear to talk about things and get things off their chest. Because the bottom line is that we just need people to uplift us and support us when life is hard and ugly.
Yeah, absolutely. And
And
having that
not
support system
everybody
is huge.
knows, not everybody knows or has the confidence to say, "Hey, I'm struggling right now."
Exactly. And you can usually, especially with those closest to you, you can tell
Mhm.
when somebody's having a tough time. And it might just be a few words of encouragement that, and it could be in passing, so
M
just
my people
challenge
know
yourself.
Yeah, my people know that if I go quiet for a few days, I'm either having health problems or I'm struggling with something else, and so I'll get, like, a couple people calling me going, "Hey, we haven't heard from you this week. What is going on?"
Right?
And, like, sometimes that's all it takes, is just knowing
Yeah.
that someone is out there thinking about you and they're willing to listen.
Oh, absolutely. I'll be sometimes just sitting in the living room in deep thought, just, thinking about life, the live, all that content and everything, and if I'm out there for too long, my youngest, she'll come up to me and she'll be like, "Dad, are you okay?" I was like, "Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm fine. I'm just thinking." She's like, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sure. I'm just thinking." She goes, "Okay." Because I usually like have this. I apparently I look pissed off when I think. I
Oh,
I've been
yeah,
told I've been told this a
you were
lot.
talking about that.
So I've had employees be like, "Are you pissed?" I'm thinking, "Oh, okay." It's just it's me, I guess, right? And so it's like she'll ask me, "You okay?" It's like, "Yeah, I'm good," And but I've come to learn with myself if I'm not in those moments, I'll just tell her like, actually, no, I'm not feeling that great. I'm not feeling this or feeling that, and she's awesome because just literally just sit there and listen because she knows like you just need somebody to listen to or somebody to encourage you, and so it's awesome to be able to have her just to have that awareness in
Yeah.
herself to even just like, I know you need some encouragement right now. And I'm gonna make usually she
Everybody
tries to make
does
people laugh.
sometimes. Yeah.
So
Everybody needs a shoulder and a kind word every now and then.
exactly. And if
So,
somebody's really down, jokes are the best way to go. Get somebody laughing and
oh,
you'll change
yeah.
their mood so fast.
If somebody's struggling with, like, wicked depression or something like that, like, turn on a comedian or a movie that is just gonna make you laugh until you cry. Because
Exactly.
like, it get even if you're feeling, like, down in the dumps, if you can start, like, genuinely laughing about something, it's automatically gonna give you those positive endorphins.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So as you guys practice this inner child challenge, we are going to be jumping off of here, getting ourselves situated for the night.
Yep.
However, September
It's almost my
26th,
bedtime.
yeah, I think we're gonna go live actually on TikTok. So if you guys want to keep hanging out, you can jump on
Oh,
TikTok with us. So
okay, that sounds fun.
yeah,
I could stay up a little bit for that.
fall asleep listening to us. That's what most people
I
do.
always do. I always fall asleep on you guys.
So many people do. I don't even find it disrespectful. You find me calm. You find us
Yeah,
calming.
I
You
just get
know.
relaxed and I'm like, snore.
Well, it is a peaceful time. Sometimes I have a hard time staying awake. Um,
Yeah. Yeah,
so
next time, September
September 26th.
26th. and we'll
Honestly,
announce what the topic's going to be about. We're working on our schedule for the rest of the year, so we'll let you know.
it's a mystery topic. So, come join us for our mystery topic on the 26th. Hopefully, we'll announce it beforehand, but we might not, and we might just let it be a surprise to what the episode's going to be
or
about.
Or if you have suggestions, you can contact one of us. Our emails are in the ticker right now. So if there's something that you want to hear about in the realm of parenting and inner child work, dude, give us
Yeah.
suggestions.
Throw it
We
in the
are
comments.
game.
Yes,
You can also join our inner child outer adult Facebook community. The link is also in the description, and we're playing inner child bingo this month, and you can come in and ask questions and share ideas and suggest topics in there. We would love that. So
absolutely. So, same bat time, same bat channel. We'll
we'll
be
see you
back
in
here on
2
the
weeks.
26th, and can't wait.
Bye, guys.
Have a wonderful night.